Hoops through life. Hoops through life.
Welcome to another episode of Hoops Through Life, a podcast where we discuss the women's basketball collegiate recruiting process and transition from high school to college. I'm your host, Elsbeth Bierman. Our guest today is Coach Artina Trader. Artina has experience as an assistant coach at Allegheny College and Carroll University. She has experience as a head coach at Thiel College, and she is currently heading into her 16th season as a head coach at North Carolina Wesleyan University. Artina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We just talked a little bit right before this podcast, and I assume you're leaving because maybe you have to go on the road, maybe you're recruiting, I'm not sure. But what is the first thing you notice about a student athlete? What draws you in?
I would say probably for me, athleticism. I like an athletic guard. Doesn't necessarily always translate to the best shooters or anything like that, but usually it's an athletic guard who can defend. You know, we mentioned that we have a mutual acquaintance, Tiffany Bell, and the one thing that drew me in about Tiffany is, you know, at 5'7", she was able to switch with a lot of, you know, she could switch with post players on this level. So I like kind of a guard that I can use in switching defensively. But I just love athleticism. That really is that gets me. I'm like, she's pretty fast.
Yeah, and I think because like you mentioned, like how she would be able to switch on that level. I feel like, and please correct me if you disagree, but I feel like especially at the D3 level, athleticism can get you out of a lot of different binds that you might have.
Yes. And that's, you know, there's been a couple of games where we probably didn't have, the other team probably had better shooters. Maybe a couple kids with a higher basketball IQ, but my kid can get up, get that rebound, take it coast to coast, and your kid can't stop her. So, you know, she's a great shooter, but she can't stop my kid going to the basket. So on this level, athleticism definitely can take you a long way. Now, when you get to some of those higher caliber teams, higher caliber leagues, you need a lot more than just athleticism. So, you know, like I said, the athleticism is what kind of gets my attention. And then I'd start to look at the other things. Well, can she do this, this, and this? Does she have an IQ? You know, is there growth in her shot? Or is it so bad that I don't even know if I can help that, you know? So it's not like I was a great shooter myself. So yeah, you know, the athleticism intrigues me. And then from there, I try to look at where can we build, what's the potential of that student athlete.
Okay, so you may have just answered this, but I'll ask it this way too. Is just like, so it sounds like your criteria for evaluating student athletes is number one, athleticism, and then what are those other factors that you're looking for specifically? I know you mentioned like IQ, handling the ball, but anything specific out of those categories that you're looking for?
It's really nothing specific. You know, I think it's very situational. I've gone and seen a recruit who's very talented and then kind of watch her when she goes to the bench. And it's like, she didn't even acknowledge her coach. Coach was trying to talk to her and it was kind of like, hey, you know, like, stop. You know what I mean? So, and again, I don't know their relationship, but outside looking in, doesn't look coachable, you know, maybe a culture killer, you know, so it's a lot of different things that go into it. And, you know, on the D3 level, I can't say we're necessarily picky, but you do want the right fit for your program. So you are looking at a lot of different things, but just strictly athletically on the court type stuff, you know, athleticism, IQ, and potential. Post players, you'd love to have some size, but then I look at kids who just are workers. You know, the success we've had over the last couple of years in the post have, you know, I think started with our rebounding. And with that, you know, you can go back and look. I haven't had many 6-footers over the last 16 years, but we've stayed in the top 3 in rebounding in the conference, top 2 for the most part in the conference, probably over the last 10 years. And minus this year, we've always been ranked in the top 10 in the country and rebound it. And that would be with a 5'7" post player, just because she's a dog and wants that ball. You know what I mean? So I cannot pinpoint and say, oh, we want this, 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 and this. I just kind of know it when I see it, and then try to look at all the other things. Now what's the GPA? Can we get them in? What's the financial aid package going to look like? All those type of things. But for the most part, it's definitely athleticism, IQ, and potential. Can that kid grow? Can the student athlete grow over the next 4 years?
And so what are some of the things that you're looking for when you talk about that potential piece?
Sometimes, in high school and AAU, it's kind of difficult for you. Have you ever heard a coach say that kid's gonna be great in college? Because sometimes in high school, depending on the high school you went to, there's a lot of high schools, coaches been there for years, they have a system, and the way this young lady, she's good, she's gonna play for that high school, but the way she plays, you see how she wants to play. If she wants to get up and down the court, but she plays for a half-court team, she has more potential at a college that's run and gun up and down the court.
Mm-hmm.
So you try to look at that like, okay, this is how she's playing in high school, how her coach wants to play. This is how I play, or how I'd like to play. Does she fit into that? And so if it's a kid who you just can tell is itching to get a steal and go, versus half court zone, I'm from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up with a shot clock. I grew up with a shot clock in high school. And then when I came to North Carolina to coach and there's no shot clock, I'm like, oh, wait, y'all are really going to hold the ball? You're really going to stay in this zone? So it's a different game when you get to college, but you can see some players, the college game, that 30-second shot clock will make them 10 times better than they are in high school. And then also too, when I was at Allegheny as an assistant, we recruited a young lady from out of Pittsburgh, Oakland Catholic, I think was the name of it. Meredith McDonough. And on her high school team, she had two D1 guards on her team, like West Virginia Pitt guards, but she was a post player. So, she would get the ball, but primarily it was rebound, put it back in, that type of stuff. In college, she was 1,000-point scorer. She wasn't in high school. So that's what I mean by, I don't think her high school coach held her back, but her potential, if she could be kind of the focal point, was, the sky's the limit for her. And it was. She did a really good job as a college athlete, but in high school, she was third, fourth option.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. I love those stories because it's like, it's about fit too, right? And you can tell when you're watching that a student athlete is not playing the way that they want to play. Like you can actually tell, like they're like trying to do something and it's just like not working for the system that they're in. And yes, same story. When I was at Shenandoah, we recruited a guard who played behind a couple really good players. So she really didn't see the floor in high school. Came to Shenandoah, was, an all-conference player, defensive player of the year. Just completely thrived in that role and in the environment. And it's like really great to see that too, right? To see just somebody thrive in a different type of environment with different supports. So that's always,
and usually that kid definitely knows what it takes to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in recruiting, especially on the D3 level, if you can get a kid from a winning program, that definitely helps. Even though they might not have been the top 1, 2, or 3 on that team, as the 5th and 6th kid, they know, okay, this is what we did to win a state title. So this is what I can bring to a college team.
Yeah. And then also to that too, it's like if you're playing against a couple of really great players, you're playing against them every day in practice. Like that is your competition day in and day out. And that goes a long way if you're thinking about the long game of like playing in college. That, like you said, like winning program and then playing against good people every single day, you're only going to get better.
Yeah.
And I also think with that too, the mentality is also a little bit different because they're used to like sitting on the bench or not playing a lot or playing behind somebody. So it's like they don't think that they not that they deserve X, Y, and Z, but they don't feel like they're entitled to
Right.
whatever it is because they've had to work for every second that they've had. So yeah. We don't have to keep on talking about this. We could talk about that all
All
day.
day, yeah.
All day, yeah. Okay, so a student athlete reached out to me on social media and wanted me to ask about recruiting twins. So I don't know if you've ever, in your time coaching, have you ever like recruited a set of twins to your team?
I've coached 1, 2, 3 sets of twins.
And they both went to the school?
Yeah.
That's so many. I feel like that I didn't think that you were going to say that. I when I was in college, there was a set of twins on the men's side, but that's really all, I had seen of it. Okay, so you're the perfect person to ask.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
3 sets of twins with that, and let's put an asterisk on it. 3 sets of twins, but only one set graduated from here. One of the sets, one sister graduated, the other one transferred. And then the last set both transferred. With that, I don't think it was anything basketball related or anything like that. But yeah, the recruiting of it, I guess that's where I'm assuming that's where you were going with it.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Only one set was a little different because one was a guard and one was a post. If you were to meet that one set of twins, the Turrentine twins, one was like 5'9", the other one was 5'2". So
she stole her height. She stole it from her.
Exactly. But and they were two very different personalities. So recruiting them was interesting but fun. They came from a winning program, so definitely understood, like everything we just talked about. And ended up coming, and I thought had a pretty good freshman year. Like I said, Sharia is the one that ended up staying. The 5'2" point guard, she stayed, graduated. Now she's an officer in the Navy. Then most recently I had the Best twins. Now they were both guards, so that was easier. One was a point guard, one was a shooting guard.
And Best is their last name?
Yes.
Okay.
Not insane. They were the better of the three. No, last name Best. They were local, and I think wanted to stay local. Local as within an hour. Like They probably went home every night for dinner, but lived on campus. Like that's how local they were. They graduated this past spring, and I think had a really good career here. They, anybody that played a sport during COVID, I take my hat off to them, and they were here during that. So it was up and down for everybody at that point. And then my twins from Florida, Ronika and Shanika, they came, and I have to give that credit to my former assistant, Desiree Driver, because she was a high school, middle school coach in Florida, and she had coached them in middle school. And then years later, she's here coaching. They reached out and was like, Coach, and she was like, you want to come all the way up here? And so it just worked out that way. So all the 3 sets all had a different recruiting process, I would say. But it really wasn't any different. We tried our best to recruit each one individually, not like, hey, how's it going? Well, tell your sister to pick up the phone. It was, I'm going to call Elsbeth, talk to her, and then I'm going to turn around and call Elizabeth. And talk to her.
I thought you were gonna say Smells Beth or something. I was curious what my sister's name would be.
So you're still going to recruit them as an individual. And with those, I would say 3 sets of twins, I think 2 of them were definitely set on going to school together. The other set, it wouldn't have surprised me if one went here and one went, the other way, but definitely recruited them as individuals. Now, when they got here, it was one set, the Best twins, the first year it really took me a minute to be able to tell them apart. Like I'd be in practice, and we called one twin, and come to find out I was always calling the point guard twin. So one day I'm looking at the shooting guard and I said, twin. She said, she right there. I'm like, no, I'm talking to you. She's like, oh, you usually call her twin and you call me by my name. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. So, and I'm horrible with names, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But for the most part, those are the only two I would ever get confused. But the other ones, Ronika and Shanika, looked alike, but you could tell them apart because one had dreadlocks and one didn't. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of easy.
Yeah. Did you or have you ever seen The Office, the show? Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have just put like a sticky note on one of them, and so you would know who is who. Yeah.
No, it was pretty easy. I mean, this is the thing. I'm so bad with names. It doesn't matter. Like you could be unrelated. Tiffany knows there was times I would look her dead in her face and be like, Courtney. Like, Coach, are you talking to me or did you want Courtney? I'm looking at you, so I'm talking to you. Like I'm that bad with names.
That's funny. So then for them, like what for those twins that I was talking about, like is there anything that they should be aware of, or how should they like approach the subject with a coach if they want to play together at the next level?
I think you say that. I'm a very direct person, you know. My last couple of assistants were like, I don't think you can say that way. And I'm like, why not? That's what I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure there was no confusion in this process, you know. Right. So I think they should say that, like, hey, my name's Lisa, my name's Claire, and you know, we play here. We would our goal is to play together in college. Not sure if that's something we can do for you, but here's my film, here's, you know, her film. And then I think inherently there's always that one twin that's a little bit better. And that might be the twin with the power. You know, she might say, I want to come here, but my sister needs a jersey too, you know. Now, once they get there, it's up to both of them to try and work for playing time. But I think at the beginning of the process, say, we want to go to college together. We want to play together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you just got to be upfront and honest, and you have to know if you're like, if push came to shove, would you go your separate ways? And it's like, you need to know that. And hopefully they both want to study something that is easy to find schools with both of those majors. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are some things that can separate a student athlete in the recruiting process for you?
For me, I think it's like, I don't know if the word's attentiveness, as far as like, you know, I think you say you coached and you tell a kid, hey, you need to apply by this day, you know, and, you know, I get a notification, hey, such and such applied yesterday. I'm like, oh, I just told her Tuesday to apply and she applied Wednesday, versus that kid, I tell Tuesday the 15th to apply and she doesn't apply until the 30th. And it's like, you're a high school kid. Really, what do you have going on that you couldn't? And it's really nowadays applying to college is literally can be done on your phone, versus I didn't grow up with computers. You know, I can remember when email started. So, you know, you had to get my mom to type it out while I said it to her because I couldn't type until like my senior year of high school. So just the word's not attentiveness, but just meeting deadlines, you know, somebody who's just on top of it. A kid who, you know, we schedule a visit at 10 and you're here at, you know, 9:50. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay. You know, versus I've had a kid visit, supposed to be here at 10. She got here at 10:30. It's not sending a good message, you know? So the kid who's, you know, young lady who's on top of things, that shows interest in you. Like we're not, you know, a secondary citizen to you. You know, D3, I think gets a bad rep just because we don't have athletic scholarships, but you know, I think the product is right up there with some D2s, you know, who shows genuine interest, you know, when we're showing interest in her. And even if, you know, we don't get the young lady, I appreciate them just being honest about that. You know, being ghosted, you know, if it's a relationship and you get ghosted, like you feel some type of way. And it's just like, you couldn't even just text me, hey, coach, I'm going, to such and such, you know? So Just a young lady who's just on top of everything, responds to things, not like 3 weeks later, oh, my bad, coach. I saw your text, but da da da. I mean, I get it. Life be lifing, as the kids say, but I think you can hit send. You know what I mean? Like, or send me a thumbs up. Some acknowledge that you received something from us in some way. Because if the roles were reversed, you would feel bad as well, so just that.
Yeah, it's always funny to me when you see student athletes are always on their phone, but they never respond. It's just like I don't understand how that works.
And some of my players will come in here and like be like, Coach, look at this. And I'm looking at the phone, I'm like, why do you have 1,000 unread messages? Oh, no, Coach, if you look, like, and they'll open it up and everything. If you look, it's just like, okay. Like, why do I respond to that? One, to just get the red off of your phone. Like, it gives me, and I know I'm OCD about some things, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah, I don't like seeing the notifications either.
No.
It's like, let's just go through it. Let's just figure this out. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what they are always on their phone, but it's a TikTok or something like that. They're like, Coach, look at this. And I'm just like, it's a dance.
You did it.
I
So when I talk to student athletes and their parents, the phrase that I hear the most is like, my daughter struggles with confidence with, and then you can just like fill in the blank with, ball handling, shooting, whatever it, overall confidence, whatever it is. So can you just talk a little bit about confidence at the collegiate level? Like, do you see students who struggle with it, and just like talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you see people struggle with confidence in any sport, on any level. And usually it might stem from one bad game, and what you kind of tell them, I like to tell my ladies a lot, you almost have to have a 30-second memory. What was the fish in Dora that couldn't remember anything?
Oh, I don't know what kind of fish Dory is, but I know who you're talking about.
So you kind of have to be that fish. Like, you just have to forget it and move on. And then if it kind of persists, you bring the young lady in and you show them film of when you did this against this team. Like, it's in you to do. Just take it one possession at a time, one game at a time. Basketball's a game of 30 seconds. 30 seconds at a time. That's all you have to think about right here, this 30 seconds. And if it messes up, don't worry. You're going to get another 30 seconds. The way we like to play, hopefully we'll have about 80 possessions. So you'll get 80 times to fix it, whether it's offensively or defensively.
Yeah.
So just try to give them examples and show them that you've done this before. Like, it's nothing new. This game has not changed since last week. It's not going to change tomorrow. No matter how many rules they put in to do whatever, you still have to put the ball in the basket. You still want to stop the other team from putting the ball in the basket. The game really hasn't changed. So just try to simplify it, because I think sometimes we complicate it too much.
Yeah, and I love your suggestion of like breaking it down into chunks. It doesn't seem as what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't seem as overwhelming.
Right.
Like, if you think about 40 minutes versus just 30 seconds, like that is a lot easier to digest. And it's like, okay, this is my focus for 30 seconds. And then, okay, this is my focus. So yeah, I love that. And also, your teams must be pretty fit if they're able to run. Not as fit as you'd like.
Not as fit as I like. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Not as fit as I like.
So if any of your players are listening, you all better start running and preparing for the season.
Tiffany Bell would say I've gotten soft over the years. I will say we probably don't run as much as we used to in practices or in the preseason and stuff like that. So not as fit, probably not as fit as any team Tiffany's ever been on. Because if she was to say we ran a lot, I'm like, that is a fact. You did run a lot.
Yeah. All right. So if, let's say, you're going through the recruiting process and like you're, I don't know, hitting some of your marks as you go through, and you're not interested in a student athlete anymore, how do you communicate that with them?
A lot of times it'll come down to, hey, I think we're going to go in a different direction. or a lot of times with that, it'll become, we have a kid committed already at that position or something like that. Or, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I mentioned her name already. My former assistant Desiree Driver was great with that. Like, she was great with telling the kid, hey, listen, this is how I see it. If you do decide to come here, probably won't help us until your junior year. Like, you have this, and this to work on. And that would be the time where I would be like, you said that to her? Like, oh. And some of those kids would be like, thank you, I appreciate that. Boom, move on. And some would take it as a challenge. Like, what? I can do all those things you said, and I'm going to do it for you. And we're just like, okay. But very rarely has that ever happened. Like, I don't get that far in a process with someone to have to say, it's not going to work out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if we're getting to the point where we're communicating on a regular basis, you're someone I think can help our program in some way.
Yeah. How, yeah, in some way, whatever that looks like, how often can a student athlete expect to hear from you if you're interested in them?
It depends. So if, we go to one of the recruiting events, how July is, it's boom, boom, boom. Usually August, like this July, you're out every weekend doing something's going on recruiting wise. So we'll start to send out stuff in the mail in August. Hopefully they can start getting stuff back. I do have a new assistant this year, and he's big on calling and texting. So he's already started to reach out to a lot of people we've seen this summer, and have some visits scheduled and all that stuff. And those are young ladies where he, really thinks that they could possibly help us. So the process can be quick. It could be as simple as, we see you on a Saturday, we're calling you on a Monday. So yeah, I'm a little bit more chill about it, just because I know it's a process, as much as FAFSA is like, oh no, we can get stuff done by December. I already know it's FAFSA. You're not getting anything till January, February. So I understand the process of it. So I don't feel the need to rush it. I think the campus looks different in November than it does in August. It's very different when everyone's back on campus. We're on a small campus in a small town, so it feels lifeless right now. Versus once everyone's here, it's like, oh wow, this is nice. So I try to do visits once students are here. When then you have some prospects that are like, no, I just want to see the campus. I don't care. I'm like, okay. So like I said, it can be as quick as a 2-day turnaround versus, a month. But I know how I recruit is different from some other people. Like, some people are, boom, I saw you on Saturday, I'm calling you on Sunday. So.
Yeah. And that, I think that all goes back to fit, right? Like, the kids that are going to respond to your style of recruiting are the ones that are going to probably be a good fit for your program. And if they needed more, they'd probably get some attention from somewhere else as
that's
well.
the thought process. Yeah. I can't remember who told me this. It was when I first got into coaching. It was kind of like, what you did to recruit that kid is what you're going to have to do to keep that kid. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not an attentive coach, but every day I'm not, I'm going to check on you we have a group chat, team group chat, but I'm not going to individually text each person, how's it going? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm here, my door's open. You can come in, we can talk about some things. But I just I'm not really big on holding your hand through a lot of things. I think the beauty of college is you get to know who you are, you grow as a person. So there's going to be some times where you have to take care of some things. I'm going to tell you what you need to do, and then you have to take care of it, but I'm not going to do it for you. And I think sometimes, sometimes coaches try to do a lot of things in the recruiting process. And then when the kid comes, it's like, that kid feels like, wait, what happened to, like, you did this, and this, what happened? And I'm going to kind of treat you how I would treat you once you got here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems pretty obvious, but it just hit me that, like, the way that a coach recruits is part of the vetting process. because if they're not responding to what you're doing, or they want, like I just said, if they want something else, it's just not going to work. And it's always interesting. I love meeting players on teams, because I think that is like a reflection of the coach, and it's just like interesting to me. It's like the personality, because it has to bleed through, because those are the people that you're attracting into the program. And so, like, and they're representing like the school and themselves and all of that. So yeah, it's interesting to me to see all of that.
It's funny you say that. When my one assistant first started working with me, she would go recruiting. And I'm like, oh, make sure you see this kid and this kid. And she was like, yep, your type of kid. Yep, I could see you playing for, and then the kid gets here and they're playing, we're in the game. I'm looking at her like, that's your recruit. So it's kind of like a mom dad type thing. You know how the kid does something bad and the mom's like, your son. So that's kind of how it sometimes feels in recruiting, as far as the players being a reflection of their coach. I think I'm pretty laid back. Somebody might think my players might not say that when it comes to other things, but I think for the most part, I'm pretty laid back. And usually my players are pretty, chill. I mean, it's nothing too extra going on usually. I'm sure there's some situations, but
There's
so
always when you're handling, 12, 15, 20 young women, like there's always something going on.
yes. But like I've been very lucky. This program's been very lucky over the last couple years just to have, actually in general, I won't even say last couple years, just to have a group that just wants to come play basketball, do what they love, get an education, just kind of go from there. I've been very lucky with that.
So what graduating classes are you looking at?
25s and 26s. You talking about high school?
Yes, yeah.
25 and 26s. My incoming freshman class, my 24s coming in, it's very interesting because I have, I think, 5 transfers coming in. So I think that's definitely changed recruiting a lot as far as transfers and the transfer portal and all of that. But, we're definitely looking at 25s and 26s with the understanding that there may be a sophomore transfer that we can go after, that, could possibly be added to the mix or something like that. So recruiting is very different than I think it was 16 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So how do you all use the transfer portal? Like, are you going in there looking at things, or just identifying people that you may have a previous relationship with and reaching out? Like, how does that work for you all?
A little bit of both. My current assistant, Alan Kuiper, he was, big on getting in there, looking at every single name in there, reaching out. I believe that as far as North Carolina Wesleyan is concerned, that we do a lot better, or we'll have a better chance of getting someone who's on the East Coast, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, down there, where he tried to go a little west, and I'm just like, I don't see it happening. I think if we can get a kid that can get to 95, because we're right in the middle between New York and Miami, right off of 95, we're going to get a 95 kid versus, I don't even know the roads that way. So,
say any number, I'm sure it's right.
Right. So, that's the conversation became, okay, yeah, she goes to this school, but where is she from? What's her hometown? Because that's a kid, football has some Florida guys, so, we can conceivably get some Florida people and keep them. But I think when you hit that portal, it has to be, to me, location. And then from there, I think fit, what they're looking for when you talk to them. I've talked to a couple people from the portal, and, they reach out and explain to you what they're looking for. And that's the beauty, because it can be a very direct conversation, because they know what happened at their last school. So now they know what they're looking for. And to go from there, I loved it. It was a very easy conversation, versus, a high school at 25 doesn't really know what they're looking for. They just know they want to play. Most of them want to play for an athletic scholarship, not knowing that on some D3 levels or some D3 schools, they could probably get more financial aid, scholarships, grants, from a D2, so that's why I know the process of it is, something you have to have patience for. You can easily go ahead and get a D2 scholarship, but we all know, if you've coached before, D2 isn't always a full scholarship.
Mm-mm.
You're going to pay something. Just like you're going to have loans for us, you're going to have loans for them. Mm-hmm. Our loans may be cheaper, fewer and far between. So just the process of it. But the beauty of, I think, the portal is those young ladies know exactly what they want, and they're going to tell you X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's and I hadn't even thought about it like that from a communication standpoint. Like, it can just be a much quicker conversation. And they have at least 1 year of experience on a college roster, being on a college campus, and that's usually what you hear, right? Is like the experience of it. Mm. But with that experience comes understanding of what you're looking for. So I think it's like you said, it's like a much easier conversation than trying to figure out. And then if that conversation goes well, I'm sure you do your own due diligence and calling coaches or talking to people just to make sure that they would be a good fit for you all from a culture standpoint too. All right, so we're talking about the high school student athletes. How do those student athletes typically get on your radar?
It could be different methods. You have the tournaments and the showcases. Word of mouth. There's people that high school coaches or used to be coaches, like, hey, you might want to take a look at this kid here. That's usually what it is for us. Going to different events. You may have gone to an event to see this specific person, and you're like, hey, who's this? I think that happens more often than not. But yeah, just going to events, and I find like a lot of the smaller events, that's where we've had some success as far as getting young ladies to commit to the program.
And what do you mean by smaller events?
During July, that's your AAU live period. So you could go to an event that has 100 teams versus in September, there's going to be a couple fall events going on, and there may only be 50 kids, 100 kids. A local high school's doing a jamboree, and they're only going to have 8 local teams. That's a smaller event. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah. No, I think that's good too, because then, yeah, there's just, I don't know, there's value to the big events, but then there's also value to the smaller events. And I think it's all about what you're looking for at the next level. Because you could just get lost in a sea of people at an event with 1 million courts. So yeah. All right, so let's move to the transition a little bit. So like that transition, high school to college, can be very stressful on and off the court. What are some proactive strategies that you might recommend to excel academically and athletically?
I think the biggest transition for from high school to college is time management. College, you're going to have so much free time. I mean, in high school, you get there 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're doing something until 3. And if you're in season, you're doing something until 5. Mm-hmm. Versus college, you may have 2 classes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So now what are you going to do with the rest of your time? And it just, I think for me, it depends on the player. Some players you don't have to worry about. They're going to find something to do. They're going to join the clubs. They're going to do that type of thing. The others, that's when you start talking to them about, hey, get in the gym, get some extra shots up, things like that. Try to get them connected with their teammates, especially a first-year player. Get them connected with a junior who can kind of show them the ropes. Try to get them out of their room, not sleeping all the time or playing the game, all that type of stuff. Video games, again, something I never understood, but whatever. But mostly just trying to help them understand, okay, you just got out of this class, you're a night owl. Why don't we go ahead and get whatever reading or homework done now, because you're going to be up tonight watching Netflix, binging something, just try to show them how to manage their time. I think that's the biggest transition, just freedom. And mom and dad aren't there. Yeah, we're here as kind of coaches are here as a checks and balances, but I'm not in that dorm room at 8 p.m. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn, you have neighbors, you have to be responsible, be quiet, other people might be studying, things like that. So just try to get them connected with their team early, in different ways. It could be team bonding or something, but try to get them connected, and then hopefully the person you got them connected with shows them how to manage their time well. But it's time management.
Yeah, I feel like that's the one of the biggest misconceptions about athletes is that they inherently have good time management. It's like, no, they know how to follow a schedule. Like if you told me I had 3 hours to do three tasks that each take an hour, of course I'm going to be able to manage my time because I have to be able to fit
Right.
all of that in into one section. Because yeah, I find the most wasted time in a college student's day is probably between like 12 and 3 because you're just sitting at the caf just hanging out with your friends when you
Yep.
could be doing a lot of other a lot of other things or taking a nap or something like that. But what about on the court? What are your expectations of your student athletes like during the summer, and then how do you expect them to be like when they walk on campus, when workouts start rolling?
During the summer, I really hope they can have a ball in their hand in some way, some shape or form, at least 3 to 4 times a week. I'm realistic in that everyone does not have access to a gym. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, I know I grew up in the olden days, but I couldn't. If coach gave me a weight program, I would be honest and be like, keep your paper. I have no access to a weight room. I'm cool with my high school coach, but he is not going to come there every day or every other day for me to lift. It's not going to happen. So I'm realistic in that. Our strength and conditioning coach put together something for the ladies, and they reach out to her about all that stuff. But I'm realistic in that. I know they're not. I know every single returner. I'm not even going to talk about the freshmen. I know every single returner isn't lifting and running based on what they were given in May, but my hope is that they have a basketball in their hand. They're playing, often throughout the week. And I know people have summer jobs and things like that. So my expectation is really to have a ball in your hand, being active, some sort of shape. Because like I always tell them, you don't have to fill out any type of paper for me to see you and know you did absolutely nothing all summer. Where I think a lot of times incoming freshmen are way easier because they want to come in and be great and play right away. So they work, they're doing something. I have one young lady, an incoming freshman, who's been working with her high school, and they do stuff like all the time. So she's been with her high school all summer. So she should come in some sort of training, a little bit higher than probably some of the other freshmen. But for the most part, I just want you to have a basketball in your hand. I'm realistic in that the weight room may be a stretch. If you can run, get some running in there, that'd be great too. But again, I kind of base stuff off of me, and I was not running. I was not running, but I played every day. So I think if you can play every day, you can kind of stay in some sort of basketball shape, because you could be playing against some people that,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I grew up playing outside. It was a little bit different, whereas we had two courts, and you always wanted to stay on this court because we called this the NBA and this the CBA, and you never wanted to leave the NBA. But if you lose, you don't know if you're going to get back on that court. So we played hard because we wanted to stay on that court. I wonder if kids even play outside anymore. That's funny. But yeah, so my expectation is really just to play the game. And if you can get some running and conditioning in there, that's great. But I know I'm not delusional in that they're going to do that.
Yeah, that yeah, it's hard because it's like that balance of like this would really help us, but what are you realistically going to do with your summer?
Right.
But oh yeah, so um during and I think the COVID year was awful. But I think some positive things came out of it. So like our biggest thing too was like not everybody has access to weights. Not everybody has access to a gym. And so what our strength and conditioning guy did was he took every single workout and he made it body weight. So it was like, okay, so if you don't have access, because people were in their homes, they couldn't go to the gym, It's like this is what you can do if you have like at least a little bit of space. And some people didn't have that enough space to do it, but still it just made it a little bit more accessible, which I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here are last couple of questions that I ask all the guests. What book or podcast would you recommend every incoming first year read before their first season begins, and why?
I'm probably going to say The Energy Bus. We read that last year as a team, and I think they enjoyed it and got something out of it. I think it, you know, I don't know. I think it was very helpful. I don't know. I'm not going to say, oh, it changed the direction of our season or anything like that, but I think everyone got something out of it, and that's saying a lot, because you have so many different personalities, backgrounds, just everything. But everyone got something out of it, so I think that'd be definitely a good one to read. Another one we've done in the past was Who Moved My Cheese? That was another one we've done in the past. So yeah, one of those I think would be helpful. Podcast, I don't listen to any sports type podcasts. I'm weird that way, but yeah. So
do you listen to any interesting podcasts? What's your favorite podcast right now?
My favorite podcast right now is called The Read.
Okay.
It's about like pop culture and two individuals just kind of commenting on pop culture. And then I just listened to something called Criminal. And they kind of talk about crimes. I don't know, it's weird. They talk about past crimes and kind of how laws have changed or current crimes and how it was like really not a crime. Like that person shouldn't have really gotten in trouble. I don't know. I can't really explain it because every episode is very different from the other one. But it's called Criminal. And then I listen to, I'm not home a lot. So I listen to 48 Hours on podcasts and 2020 on podcasts. And what's the other one? Dateline. I listen to those three on podcasts. So not a lot of sports involved in it.
No, that's interesting too. And the Criminal one, that sounds interesting because I don't know, I find it fascinating when people like take something and put it maybe in a different context, or they, and they just kind of rethink about it. Because I feel like a lot of times we were like, oh, this happened, and then like it's just left right there and it's not like brought anywhere. So,
and it's weird because it's called Criminal, but it's not always about crimes. Like the one episode was talking about how EMS kind of got started in Pittsburgh using African Americans. Like CPR, when CPR first started, it was like, oh, you have to do CPR. If somebody passes out, you have to do it within this time, this compressions, blah, blah, blah. So what this company did was they started hiring more African Americans. I forget the reason why. Taught them CPR, all the EMS type stuff. And I'm summarizing in my own words, my own way. And then what happened was they would show up, they called out when they show up, and some of the white clientele be like, oh no, you can't perform. So it'd be like, they would call the police and the police would be like, you can't do CPR. And they're like, I can't do CPR, but you're about to let her die.
Right.
And so then it was like, the police started realizing, oh, we have to let them they have to do CPR. So it was a very interesting episode. That was last year sometime. So it's called Criminal, but that was, I guess, because they called the police a lot on them.
Yeah.
And then some police officers would arrest them and some would be like, go do your job. Because then they started to try and teach the police CPR. And it was like, dude, that's not my job. Like, I could be doing something else. And it was a whole thing. It was interesting how it kind of came about. But yeah, that's kind of that's the stuff I listen to when I'm driving. So it's funny. Recently, and I know we got to go, but
no, you're good.
A new song came out, and I texted him like, "Yo, why you don't tell me about this new song?" And the one player was like, "Don't you just listen to podcasts in your car? Like, why would we tell you about new music?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So
yeah, that Criminal story, it just makes you want to shake your head. It's just like that's just no
weird.
Words. There's no words
sense
to that. You would rather die. You'd rather die. Okay, cool.
Right.
All right. All right. So if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about the recruiting process or maybe transition to college, what would it be?
I don't know. We talked about the pandemic. The one thing I liked about the pandemic was, I want to say, excuse me, since everyone wasn't playing, every school handled it differently. The NCAA gave D3, I think, like 115 days
Hmm.
instead of like, oh, you have from October 15th. Yeah, so you could kind of do how you need to do it, and the school can kind of, we can only do groups of whatever in the gym. I like that. Like, I would like to go back to that. I think it was 114 days.
Yeah.
I think I would like to go back to that. We now have 8 days, and I think you can start after September 1st. 8 days, can't go more than 3 days a week, but those 8 days can lead you up to October 15th. Or I think you can save them for after the season. But so that gives you the 114 pandemic vibes, although it doesn't,
Yeah.
you only get
Like a
8 days.
hybrid.
It definitely, like, for me, we tried to use it to, teach the hell out of shell. Like,
Hmm.
this is where you need to be defensively. This is why, boom, boom, boom. So then, boom, October 15th comes, we're working on other things. And, shell every day we're doing shell and defensive type stuff. But if you can kind of focus on that defensive stuff, those 8 days, I liked it last year. I thought it was awesome. It's still not 114 days, but very similar. So I wish we could go back to that pandemic year, minus the pandemic.
Matter minus the isolation and all of that.
Yes.
All right. So last but not least, any final words of wisdom?
No, I
You think
don't
you
know
said
if
it all?
I don't know if I've said it all. I don't know even know if I've said anything, if anybody would get anything out of this. But, I think you just, when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to trying to be recruited, just be yourself and be direct and be honest. I think everybody appreciates that both ways. At the time, sometimes it's like, huh. And then on reflection, you're kind of like, yeah, I appreciate that. I'll tell a young lady, hey, if we're not it, tell me, so I can move on. We hear no more than we hear yes. No does not hurt our feelings, might piss us off based on where you go if you go in conference, but you definitely have to do what's best for you, and we understand and respect that.
Mhm.
If it comes down to the financial aid portion, understand and respect. If it's athletics, understand. If it's academics, we understand. But for the most part, and also enjoy the process, enjoy it. It's your process. You're going through it. I think a lot of times, I had a young lady visited, whatever, got in the car, about to leave, ran back in. Wait, did you offer me? I looked at my assistant. I'm like, sure. Next thing I know, 2 minutes later, she has a graphic on social media
Mhm.
offered. I'm like, was that what this visit was for? Was that for an offer, or was it a genuine,
Right.
interest in the program in the school? So I think sometimes it might be for other reasons, some of this stuff. So just enjoy it, because once you pick where you're going, it goes by fast.
Hmm.
Even though it's 4 years, is quick.
Yeah. You blink and it's gone.
Yes, to the point where I have some, alum that'll come back and I'm like, oh yeah, y'all played, and they're like, I don't know her. I never played. I get it all mixed. I think everybody played together. You sure? Because I remember, Coach, no. And then I graduated in 2015. Really? She graduated 2 years ago. So it goes by fast, and for me, it's all jumbled and mixed together. So enjoy it. I would say enjoy the process, and then enjoy the journey. So
Yeah. And if anybody wants to keep up with you or NC Wesleyan or find out more about, the program, where can they find you?
I believe our handles are NCWU_WBB. I think that's for everything.
All right, cool. All right. Well, Artina, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you aren't already, I would highly recommend subscribing to the podcast so you can get updated once new episodes are dropped. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and leave a review. It really helps spread the word to more athletes, parents, and coaches. Now, if you have any questions for myself or future guests, feedback, or you're curious on how we can work together to help you reach your basketball goals, let's have a conversation. Feel free to email me at l@hoopsthroughlife.com today to set that up. That's el@hoopsthroughlife.com. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.